Why did you fail to build muscle with calisthenics? Was it your training experience, genetics, or was the system flawed by design? You can only get big and aesthetic through lifting heavy weights, brah. The answer is neither of those things. The truth is that what caused you to fail with bodyweight training, or even adding in a bit of weight, is exactly what will guarantee failure with lifting weights. Hypertrophy training is not complicated. There are principles that when you stick to, it makes no difference whether you're the one who's moving through space or if you're pushing the object away. And resistance is resistance. What actually matters is ensuring a high proximity to failure, staying in the 5 to 30 rep range, inducing progressive overload, sleeping enough, eating in a calorie surplus, hitting big compound movements, some accessory work to refine your weak points. Basically, it's the exact same thing. You can run a bodybuilding split. You can run the same template even, the same movement patterns, but you're swapping it out for calisthenics motions. So instead of benching, you're doing push-ups. Instead of lat pull-downs, you're doing pull-ups. Instead of decline bench, you're doing weighted dips. Instead of camber bar bench, you're doing deficit push-ups. Instead of doing dumbbell bench, you're doing ring push-ups. Instead of doing leg extensions, you're doing sissy squats. Instead of cable rows, you're doing inverted rows. Easy, simple substitutes that anyone can make today. Yet, a lot of the exercises I mentioned aren't even talked about in conventional calisthenics programs. How come it always goes back to basic street workouts? High rep push-ups and bodyweight squats, or just circuit training, when we know that's not efficient for gaining size. So was it the calisthenics that caused failure or the way you programmed it? Let me ask you an eye-opening question. When you moved away from calisthenics because you were somehow too good for it, which I don't buy for a second, I'm not too good for it, and you see what I'm doing. When you moved away from it, were you able to do over 30 push-ups, 30 bodyweight squats, 30 dips, 30 pull-ups? I doubt it with the dips and pull-ups, but let's say you were. Out of those exercises, which did you experience the least plateaus with and the most growth? I'm going to bet for 100% of you, it was the pull-ups and dips. Why? Because they're proportionally so much harder. By design, that would have taken a long time. So the journey itself was prolonged, and then the difficulty itself kind of forces you to have a pretty good physique. Whereas the push-ups, how many beginners can do over 30? I bet it'll be easily over half my audience. It's such an easy task to do. The squats, I will bet it's 70% plus, if not 90% plus. Yet, when I go on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, the most common exercise that's prescribed is the bodyweight push-up and bodyweight squat. And then you wonder why you're not big. What did I tell you earlier at the very start of this video? If you stay in the 5 to 30 rep range, going to failure or very close to it, let's say 0 to 2 reps in reserve, hypertrophy outcomes are equal. Yet if you're always going above this, as in the case of only doing the basics, you're training your endurance. The hypertrophy outcomes are not equal. So what do you have to compensate towards? There's only one solution at this point. You need to do hundreds of repetitions. And that is where the concept of down workouts came into play. It was never meant to be superior. It was just a strategy of overcoming this very obvious flaw. But the thing is, by you doing that, you're generating way more fatigue, and you're limited by other factors like work capacity, pain tolerance, then even the motor unit recruitment, because you're taking such a little rest between sets, is not going to be as high. So you can do a 30 down push-up workout, which is probably as best as it's going to get, to be honest with you, but you have to do 465 reps. Compare that to wearing a backpack and doing 3 sets of 10. 30 reps, 465 reps. 10 minutes of time, 45 minutes of time, plus all that central fatigue. What if you don't even go weighted on the push-up and you just lean your body forward, pseudo planche style, or you switch to the diamond push-up, or you elevate your feet, or you do ring push-ups? Basically, find a variation that forces your rep count to go below 30. That's your criteria. I'm not even saying you gotta be in the 5 to 10 rep range. I want you being minimum 35% of your 1 rep max. But if you're below that, which is what I always see, then that's why you're not gaining size. And for the squats, that is the biggest waste of time ever. Combined with the progressions like pistol squats, those two are trash for hypertrophy because they're so unstable. You can't produce maximum force unless you find variations that allow for more progression, like half-field style. You're grabbing onto something. You're pausing at the bottom. You're standing on top of a box for less balance. But even then, why are people not doing sissy squats, reverse Nordics, regular Nordics? And if we actually analyze the squat itself, when you put a bar on your back, is that not weighted calisthenics? I feel like guys just look at the basic movement patterns, horizontal push, pull, vertical push, pull, and they stick to the most basic variations of all time. Do that for a couple of months and then say, oh, I milk calisthenics, I'm done. No, you're only getting started. Literally, the journey has only begun. It's like playing a trial in World of Warcraft. You get your character up to level 20, and now you gotta pay for the subscription. Well, that's the stage you're at. Or like you travel to a country, you explore some of the major cities, you feel pretty comfortable being there. But there's still all the outskirts, the suburbs. What about living with the people? You think you know everything about a place you went to within a week's time? Or is it gonna take you a month or longer to really absorb everything? Calisthenics is no different. The basics certainly work. Everyone should master the previously mentioned exercises. But if you're not going beyond, if you're not dropping your rep count, failure is the only option. I'm sorry. And you're the one to blame. I'm tired of people saying it's calisthenics that's the problem. You can build a supernatural physique with bodyweight training. And if you want to escape the purist mentality, actually add on a bit of weight. And it doesn't take much in most cases. Even better. So stop with the junk volume. Stop with the GPP. That's going to get you fit, in killer shape. Absolutely. But it should be in addition to your more intense sessions. The central theme, number one of all for gaining muscle, is having a higher proximity to failure within the 5 to 30 rep range. That is it. It's so simple that I don't even know what else to say about this. Like I can stay here all day and give you variations, but you can figure out the rest. Have a little bit of creativity and just make the exercises harder. And you'll be able to make gains for years to come. I can promise that's the case for 100% of everybody watching this video. That's it. You don't need 10 sets of 10 with low rest. So if you're trying to build your chest, maybe do a difficult fly variation, a difficult decline variation, maybe close grip as well, and then hit a ring variation. So 3 sets each, 3 minutes of rest in between sets, 9 sets total. Man, that is a killer stimulus. It'll blow up anyone's chest. I don't care who you are. You can be an elite bodybuilder. You're going to gain muscle with this, guaranteed. As long as the intensity is there. You don't have to mindlessly pump reps like a bro, hoping that one day you're going to be jacked. Sure, you can do that, just like what we see with some of these street dudes, but they're doing thousands of repetitions. And many have a prison background as well. So they're on a different level from you and me. So if you want to train like that, be my guest. Otherwise, take the bodybuilding route, which will save you time, is infinitely superior for size on every possible metric since you're literally tailoring it for that purpose, and allows for smoother progression. And you know that that's what you're getting. Hypertrophy, it's not all the other stuff, with less headaches, programming wise. Actually, another way of making exercises even harder is by controlling them and doing a full range of motion. The only kinds of partials I'll accept are lengthened partials. So the prisoners did have it right on that point. You don't necessarily have to lock out your elbows if you're just trying to grow your pecs off the push-up. But in a general situation here, you want a full stretch and a full squeeze. And we talk about exercises like pull-ups. I rarely see that. Guys are bringing their eyes to the bar. They haven't even touched chest to bar if they claim they're too strong. Or on the way down, they got this bend in their elbows because hanging is bad for the shoulders. No, that's just cope. Anyone can do a dead hang. Or if you don't want to go in that extreme position because that does recruit a bit more upper back, you want pure lats, fine. just leave it here. But notice how the elbows are still locked out. That's the criteria. Also, you don't want to be bouncing or kipping your reps, which is what I usually see. Almost no one does their calisthenics with control. Not slow motion, okay? That's not what I'm talking about here. You can be explosive on the way up, but incorporate some pauses and control that negative. Don't let your body weight control you. You're the master. So by introducing the tiniest amount of tempo, a speck of it, your rep count is going to drop like crazy, which further equates to hypertrophy outcomes. And you're also going to have less fatigue within those sets. So if you were able to do over 20 pull-ups with, say, your strongest grip, just going as fast as possible, and now you use a harder variation for one, like the wide grip or doing chest to bar, you explode on the way up, hold it for a second or two, and then control that negative. You get a full range of motion. Man, you might even struggle to get 15 repetitions. You might be down to novice numbers again. And you know what? That is a great thing. We want to get more out of less weight. The worse you are at calisthenics, the better it is for hypertrophy. So in fact, some people maybe didn't give this video a chance because they're too fat, or they struggle to get even 10 bodyweight pull-ups with the regular way. You, my friend, do you realize that you're blessed? You have an advantage over everybody else. Not only is there tremendous strength and size potential because by default, you're in a higher percentage, but when you cut down, you're going to have one of the freakiest physiques and explosions of rep counts. So imagine you're this bigger guy doing 5 sloppy-ish pull-ups, eventually fix them up, then you double your rep count to 10. Imagine what happens when you eventually decide to lose that weight. You are going to have one freaky back, and you'll finally be able to display your hard-earned strength because you got to look at the total weight. A guy who weighs 250 being able to do bodyweight pull-ups is not the same as someone weighing 150. That's why I would even tell you, my standard, like if you're 250, you got to do a 50-pound weighted pull-up for one rep. Whereas if you're 150 pounds, yeah, you got to have 150 pounds to spend it. It scales in that way, which actually connects this whole theme of bulking. When you're trying to build muscle in the gym, do you eat in a calorie deficit for months or years at a time? Do you expect that that's the optimal way? And when we look at different kinds of lifters, who has the easiest time gaining muscle? Permabulkers or those who are more endomorphic, which is not a real thing. Stop with the somatotype nonsense. What it really boils down to is your appetite. These are guys who can eat a lot of food, right? Likewise, the opposite, your hard gainer, they fail to gain muscle, not because of programming or hard work. It's usually that they don't eat enough. And I'm going to argue that's the majority of people. So even if you optimize your calisthenics program, it is done correctly. You listen to my advice. If you subscribe to the shredded year-round ideology because calisthenics is a sport of relative strength and you want to be able to display what you got, and obviously you look aesthetic already, right? But if you stay within that mind frame, you're just going to stay small for years or slow down your progression. It's not going to be optimal, ever. What works for lifting is what works for bodyweight training when we talk about hypertrophy. This is the theme I'm trying to get across to you guys. So a bodyweight bodybuilder, as Fitness FAQs likes to put it, should be in a caloric surplus. Now, I don't know if he would agree with me on that point. Probably not, to be honest. But I speak from a purist perspective. For those who are not necessarily trying to compete in street lifting, in which they must maintain a certain weight class, but for those who want maximum muscle gains. And the truth is, a surplus is always going to be better. You don't have to do a gigabulk, gain 20 pounds of fat, but within the next 6 months, you should at least put on 4 pounds of fat, something like that. Like, your weight should be going up, or at best going up a weight class. So if you're 165, go up to 181 and stay within that zone. You don't have to go up to 200, just to say. The surplus equals better recovery and worse leverages, which, as I pointed out, is actually a good thing for gaining muscle. If you can detach your ego that, oh, I can't do as many total reps, like, it doesn't matter. Are you failing? Are you within that optimal hypertrophy rep window? If so, great. The less agile you are, the better. Consider this a free way to vest. And if you look at guys like Julius Maddox, he still does his push-ups. Yet in his case, because he's so heavy, they're rather difficult. Can still bang him out, but all this to say, it's actually in his benefit to be that weight, because he's not going to be doing high sets like these skinnier dudes. That's all I'm trying to say. Next, if you want to gain even more muscle from calisthenics, then in my opinion, it's mandatory that you experiment with gymnastic rings and of course, isolate your muscles just like what every bodybuilder on the planet does. There are no exceptions to this. So if you have a minimalist mindset that chin-ups and dips are all you need for arms, enjoy that torso-dominant life. Because even with calisthenics athletes, I still see this problem. They have super wide lats and bulging pecs, yet sticks for arms. Like, when are people finally gonna learn? The only guys who don't seem to have this problem are the gymnasts, because they use rings, they actually isolate as well, and all that straight arm work, like these variations are so difficult that you're forced to grow. But I'm not even gonna recommend that, because that too is inefficient for hypertrophy. I just want you to do some basic ring curls and ring extensions. And the reason I'm recommending ring over the bar, because it's easier to adjust the heights and it's better on your joints. Plus, more difficult, not to mention having way more exercise variety. So there's so much to cover. I'd rather not do that for today, but if you want to hit your pecs in the showing position, get that squeeze, the number one way is going to be with a ring fly or ring push-up. If bodyweight dips are too easy, try doing ring dips. Most of you won't even be able to get 20 repetitions, straight up. You're getting that converging effect. When we talk about pull-ups, you can now leverage the rib cage. The strap is coming out and in. You have more rotation. Minimizes overuse. So it's not just about building muscle, it also keeps you injury-free and maximizes your performance in the long term. So just being complete overall, any calisthenics practitioner who hasn't yet used rings, like that must be leaving at least 20% or more of gains on the table, and you're greatly reducing your efficiency. This is one of the most important investments you'll ever make. I can promise you that. And even lifters should experiment with it. This is how you'll get those gym movement patterns, not to mention working on your stability, which could be a limiting factor with your regular calisthenics. So you correct the weak link, everything is in a better position. Finally, if your program lacks structure, as in you only do workouts, not programs, or you love follow along challenges like push-ups every day for the next 3 months, then expect to stay small for a very long time, because even the creators of that kind of content don't train this way. You know what they actually do behind the scenes while they laugh and take your money? A traditional upper-lower program, full body. That's very common with calisthenics. Actually, they tend to skip legs. Split routines even. They train hard like anybody else, like a strength athlete or bodybuilder. So what I recommend is you look up any weightlifting program and copy it. And in my case, I happen to use the conjugate system in the calisthenics context. So I'll have an intensity day where my exercise selection is lower, but I have a higher percentage of my 1 rep max. I might even max out on the dip and pull up, because those are the competition movements for the sport of street lifting. And then I'll do accessories to refine my weak links, driving a bit more volume for size. Then there's the volume day, where there's more exercises, a lower percentage, higher repetitions, more basic variations, but I'm manipulating my leverages to get more out of less weight. I track all my workouts. I use double progression. So whatever the rep range is, once I can hit the highest number for all my sets, I increase weight. So if it says 3 sets of 8 to 12 on a dip, I'm gonna get 12, 12, 12, and then add 5 pounds. Or I'll change to a different rep range if I'm not adding weight, for all you purists out there, which again, I don't even recommend. Because that too is sabotaging your progression. You being stubborn like that, you having an ego, is killing your gains. So you need structure and consistency. Then for the skill work, same thing. There's easier and harder variations. If you're trying to learn the planche, it's probably in your best interest to do the tucked versions. Don't only rely on absolute strength. Sure, that'll get you very far, and for many, it can instantly guarantee performance. But a methodical approach is always going to be best. And that's what you see with all the top guys. Those who had a plan succeeded. Whereas your average Joes who did this for fitness, just to be in shape, they never got big. And coincidentally, they're now the same lifters who are complaining about calisthenics. These are the guys who, over 2 years ago, didn't get results with home training. They're not the guys in my comment section who had the opposite effect, that when they got back to the gym, their bench press went up. They had bigger muscles because those guys did it right. So that's it. I hope this video gave you a new perspective on bodyweight bodybuilding. I don't want to hear any more comments that you can't build an elite natural physique with this style of training. Now you know the facts. It's your choice if you wish to implement these modifications. If not, then there's only you to blame. It's that simple. And for those who've been on this path for a long time, you're just saying yes, yes, yes the entire time. Because you've experienced the gains, as have I, and we're going to continue growing. So keep making those gains. If you got any insight on this topic, I'd love to see it in the comment section. And I'll talk to you all next time.